Chapter 7, verses 4 to 10, Christ greater than Aaron. Paul starts with an arresting thought. Every Jew honoured Abraham, the founder of his race, and for good reason. Look at his place in the Scriptures, the revelations made to him, the honoured position he holds in being called the friend of God. But Paul asks them to consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave the 10th of the spoils. There is no minimizing of Abraham's greatness. That greatness only shows how very great the other must have been when Abraham willingly and unquestionably paid him tithes, thereby recognizing his intrinsic superiority. The sons of Levi received tithes also, but with a difference. They received them because the law prescribed that they should be paid, and not because of any acknowledged personal superiority over the one who paid tithes. And unto the children of Levi, behold, I have given all the tithe in Israel for an inheritance, in return for the service which they serve, even the service of the tent of meeting. And henceforth the children of Israel shall not come nigh the tent of meeting, lest they bear their sin and die. But the Levites shall do the service of the tent of meeting, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations. And among the children they shall have no inheritance, for the tithe of the children of Israel, which they offer as an heave offering unto the Lord, I have given to the Levites for an inheritance. Therefore I have said unto them, among the children of Israel they shall have no inheritance. Numbers 18, verses 21 to 24. This law conferred upon the Levites this dignity and privilege in Israel among their fellow descendants of Abraham. But it only gave them the right to tithe their brethren, who, but for the law, were their equals as children of Abraham. It might also be said that the law in turn laid upon them the obligation to tithe their fellows. The law which conferred the dignity required obedience to its commands. Paul recalls the privilege of the sons of Levi in order that he might show how much greater Melchizedek was than they. And verily they that are of the sons of Levi, who receive the office of the priesthood, have a commandment to take tithes of the people according to the law, that is, of their brethren, though they come out of the loins of Abraham. But he whose descent is not counted from them received tithes of Abraham, and blessed him that had the promise. And without all contradiction, the less is blessed of the better. Verses 5 to 7. Paul reasons that the case of Melchizedek is different from that of the priest under the law. There is no record of any law giving him a title to tithe men. He takes tithes because of an acknowledged inherent greatness and superiority. Levi was not yet born. The Levitical code was not enacted. Melchizedek had no connection with Levi, and therefore owed nothing to him. The reverse was actually the case, as presently shown. But Melchizedek not only took tithes of Abraham, but he blessed him. This action at once shows his position and his superiority to the patriarch. His position in divine favour is such that he can speak for God. Blessed be Abraham of the Most High God. And conferring blessing from God, he led men in blessing God. And blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thine hand. Genesis 14, verses 19 to 20. Melchizedek blesses. Abraham is blessed. But the greater gives the blessing. Christ is of this order, not by descent from Levi, or by virtue of any command connected with Levi. He has this privilege. It belongs to himself, by virtue of what he is. And he blesses indeed. Through him the blessing of Abraham is available for all. In him will all nations be blessed, led and guided by him. All mankind will yet bless God. But further, the Levitical priests were mortal men, but in its silence the Scriptures witness that Melchizedek lives, for it records not his death. If we may so put it, in the case of Melchizedek, this is a literary fact. But it is actual fact in the case of Christ. And here men that die receive tithes. But there he receiveth them of whom it is witnessed that he liveth. Still further, by the license of figure, Levi himself paid tithes to Melchizedek, for he was yet unborn when Abraham paid tithes. And it may be said that what Abraham did, he did for his descendants as well as for himself. This turns the tables, for if it be said that Levi's greatness lay in his power to tithe, how great was he to whom Levi paid tithes? And as I may so say, Levi also, who receiveth tithes, paid tithes in Abraham, for he was yet in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. Verses 9 and 10. By these reasons Paul shows the superiority of the priesthood of Melchizedek over that of Aaron. Melchizedek tithed not by legal right, but because of his position and his inherent greatness. In the pages of the Scriptures Melchizedek ever liveth, while generation after generation of the sons of Aaron pass away. Levi himself in Abraham paid tithes to Melchizedek. Levitical priesthood superseded, verses 11 to 19. The verses to which we have now come are of vital importance in the Apostle's argument. He has shown that another priest had to come after the order of Melchizedek, and who, therefore, would be greater than Aaron. The advent of this priest involves nothing less than the cancellation of the whole Mosaic economy. The relation of every Israelite to the Mosaic law was affected. And if this be so, if the Levitical priesthood be superseded, then the inefficacy of this priesthood and of the Lord is manifest. The bearing of this upon those to whom Paul wrote is only too evident, if we try to put ourselves in their place. Now if there was perfection through the Levitical priesthood, for under it hath the people received the law, what further need was there that another priest should arise after the order of Melchizedek, and not be reckoned after the order of Aaron? Verse 11. The question demands a negative answer. If the Levitical priesthood truly served the work of priesthood, there would not have been arrangement made for another to take its place. The aim of the office of priesthood is designated perfection, a relative word, but which might be defined in this place, in view of verse 19 and chapter 9, verse 9, as enabling men to draw near to God with a clear conscience. Its work was to bring men to God, reconciled and forgiven. This perfection was not achieved by the Aaronic order. The parenthetic remark, "for under it the people received the law," indicates the close connection between the Levitical priesthood and the Mosaic law. It is as though Paul said, in asking if perfection was by the priesthood, we're also asking if perfection came by the law. The terms are reversed in an affirmative statement in verse 19. The law made nothing perfect, which is the same as saying, as the context shows, that by it men did not draw nigh to God. The law was based upon the priesthood. It was not the law which established the priesthood, but the reverse. Hence, if the priesthood was not able to bring perfection, and has to be superseded, the law also must be annulled. Paul states this in conclusion in verse 12. For the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change of law. Here he uses the milder word change. But within a few verses, when a further argument has been made, his conclusion, downright evident, he boldly uses the word disannul. For there is a disannulling of a foregoing commandment because of its weakness and unprofitableness. Verse 18. The relation of law and priesthood, as here set forth by Paul, is sometimes overlooked. Yet it is so prescribed in the Old Testament. The priest's duty was to interpret the law. For the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth. For he is the messenger of the Lord of hosts. Malachi 2 verse 7. They turned aside out of the way, causing many to stumble in the law. They had respect of persons in the law, verses 8 and 9. How they could do this is clear when we remember that the priests were the final court of appeal in legal matters. In the event of a matter being too hard for the local judges, the case had to go forward to them. And thou shalt come unto the priests, the Levites, and unto the judge that shall be in those days, and enquire. And they shall show thee the sentence of judgment. And thou shalt do according to the sentence which they of that place which the Lord shall choose shall show thee. And thou shalt observe to do according to all that they shall inform thee, according to the sentence of the law which they shall teach thee thou shalt do. Thou shalt not decline from the sentence which they shall show thee, to the right hand or to the left. Deuteronomy 17, verses 8 to 11. Remove the priesthood, and the legal system associated with it collapses. Moreover, the very continuance of the national life of the people depended upon the work of the priesthood. On the Day of Atonement, the goat of the sin offering, that is for the people, was slain, and its blood sprinkled on and before the mercy seat. Thus the priest made an atonement for the holy place because of their uncleanness and their sins, for the priests and for all the people of the congregation. Leviticus 16, verse 15 and 16. This had to be done once a year. The priesthood was thus the soul of the whole political economy of the nation. Remove it, and national life as appointed by the law ceased. Establish its weakness and inefficacy, and the law falls with it. These larger considerations are sometimes not observed when the place of the law in the purpose of God is discussed. What further need for a different priest of another order, Paul asks. And as an indication of how stringent the need must be for God to have arranged for another, he adds, For the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law. verse 12. Yet, great as these consequences are, a different priest has come, different in that he belongs to another tribe than Levi, concerning which there was no arrangement made in the Mosaic legislation, and who therefore does not belong to that system. For he of whom these things are said belongeth to another tribe, from which no man hath given attendance at the altar. For it is evident that our Lord hath sprung out of Judah, as to which tribe Moses spake nothing concerning priests. Verses 13 and 14. The word sprung is interesting. It is used of light springing up, the dawn, and also of vegetation. Both figures find a meeting place in Jesus. He is the star out of Jacob, of Balaam's prophecy, Numbers 24, verse 17. He is the Son of Righteousness, which rises with healing in his beams, Malachi 4, verse 2. But he is also the branch of David, Jeremiah 23, verse 5. The rod out of the stem of Jesse, Isaiah 11, verse 1. And also the man whose name is the branch, who sits as king and priest upon his throne, Zechariah 6, verse 12. In its context in Hebrews, the word sprung suggestively takes the mind to this last passage. Jesus, the new priest-king, whose name is the branch, or shoot, or sprout, Revised Version margin, has sprung from Judah. There is a further reason for the annulling of the law, a reason the apostle calls downright evident. In the matter of tribal connection of Jesus with Judah, he was content to say that it was evident. This more evident need for cancellation concerns the nature of the priest and the character of his priesthood. And what we say is yet more abundantly evident. If after the likeness of Melchizedek there ariseth another priest, who has been made not after the law of a carnal commandment, but after the power of an endless life. For it is witnessed of him, Thou art a priest for ever, after the order of Melchizedek, verses 15 to 17. The new priesthood is founded on a new principle. The contrast is clearly seen when the matter is set out in parallel. The Aaronic is, the Melchizedekian is. After the law, after the power, of a carnal, of an endless commandment, life. I'll read that again for you. The Aaronic is after the law of a carnal commandment. The Melchizedekian is after the power of an endless life. The Aaronic was based on law, a power outside itself which conferred the title. The law concerned the flesh. It was the law of a carnal or fleshly commandment. This restricted the priesthood to a flesh relationship. Descent from one tribe, bodily fitness, marriage ties, etc., all regulations concerning the flesh. It was established by commandment. It was vital to the law which gave it authority. Failure of either was the end of both. Quite opposite is the order of Melchizedek. This is characterized by power, an inherent qualification belonging to the individual himself. In the case of the type, this is a feature of the picture as drawn by God. In the antitype, it belongs to him because his sinless life, his sacrificial death, and his resurrection have fitted him for the office of priest. Because of what he has accomplished, he has power. The power is manifested through an endless or indissoluble life. He has died once, but death hath now no more dominion over him. He lives. He is priest for ever. He has overcome sin and death, and so removed the barrier to free access to God. Such a one is essentially the priest. This qualification might be deduced from another lesson in the law. God's choice of Aaron was established by his rod being caused to blossom and bud. The resurrected rod indicated that God had appointed him to be priest. The resurrection of Christ himself established his title to a greater priesthood. Paul now restates his reason why the priesthood should be changed, summing up in so doing what he has said in verses 11 to 17. The Revised Version must be followed here because of its greater accuracy and clearness. For there is a disannulling of a foregoing commandment because of its weakness and unprofitableness. For the law made nothing perfect, and a bringing in thereupon of a better hope, through which we draw nigh unto God. Verses 18 and 19. He uses the stronger word disannulling, now that he has proved his case. He calls the law a foregoing commandment, implying something other than to come after. He describes the law as weak and unprofitable, adding parenthetically, by way of explanation, that the law made nothing perfect. It was weak in that it did not touch the conscience. Chapter 9, verse 9, and 10, verse 2. It was unprofitable in that it did not bring men near to God. For this was the aim of the priesthood, and if it did that, it reached perfection in relation to its work. While on the other hand there is this disannulling of the old order, on the other hand there is a bringing in thereupon of a better hope. God, who founded the old, has annulled it and brought in the better hope. Thereupon denotes something introduced by way of addiction or supersession. And the hope is better in that it satisfies completely all needs, providing for forgiveness of sins and reconciliation. Through this hope the worshipper draws nigh to God. Under the law it was only the priest who came near. The phrase even became descriptive of the priest's office, Jeremiah 30, verse 21. And then he only drew nigh to the typical throne of God in the midst of the nation, while the worshipper stood without. But what was the priest's prerogative under the law is eclipsed in that the worshipper himself can draw near to God, being introduced by Christ. Romans 5, verse 2. The argument shows the inherent weakness of the system of the Levitical priesthood to achieve the end and aim of priesthood. The law could not give life because it was based on a priesthood that was only temporary, serving as a type of the true. During all the time of its existence, there was a picture of the perfect in the record of Melchizedek in Genesis 14. And from this Paul has shown the superiority of Christ over Aaron. Christ appointed with an oath, verses 20 to 22. Paul proceeds until nothing more can be said. Christ's priesthood is established by oath. The Lord sware, "Thou art a priest," but the Aaronic was not. The oath of God accompanies all the promises that have to do with eternal life. To Abraham, Genesis 22, to David, Psalm 89, to Moses, Numbers 14, to Isaiah, chapter 45. In the light of this, the omission in the appointment of Aaron and his sons is significant. The old covenant was based on a priesthood, verse 11, appointed without oath. The difference between the two priesthoods in this matter of oath is the measure of the difference between the two covenants. The better hope belongs to the better covenant. Of this Jesus is surety or guarantor. The oath-confirmed promises concern eternal things. Of these Jesus is surety because he is priest forever, an office he holds because of what he has already done. This is the blood of the new covenant, shed for many for the remission of sins, is how he beautifully expressed it, putting together ideas which at once show the weakness of the old and the strength of the new covenant. Paul puts the case thus: "And inasmuch as not without an oath he was made priest." For those priests were made without an oath, but this with an oath by him that said unto him, "The Lord sware and will not repent, thou art a priest for ever after the order of Melchizedek." By so much was Jesus made a surety of a better testament, covenant, Revised Version. Christ's priesthood unchangeable, verses 23 to 25. The last point of contrast is now reached. The Aaronic priests were many. Death cut off each one in turn. But Jesus lives forever. He has no successor. There is no failing of his power. The priest was the spiritual guide and helper of all who brought the offerings. Verse 2 and 3. With the change of priest, the offerer must needs enlist the sympathy and get the understanding and help of the new priest. But Jesus knows all about those who come unto God by him, and he knows all the time. Because he ever lives, he's able to save to the uttermost. We notice again that salvation is bound up with priesthood, and it is impossible without it. And they truly were many priests, because they were not suffered to continue by reason of death. But this man, because he continueth ever, hath an unchangeable priesthood. Wherefore he is able also to save them to the uttermost, that come, draw near, Revised Version, unto God by him, seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for them. Verses 23 to 25.
Don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment in the comment section and let us know what you thought. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Please share it and spread the word. Thanks for watching, and remember to come back soon.